All right, it's time for Random Rambling Wednesday.
I love that funky beat.
You do. It's so sad, though. JP doesn't wear headphones when we do this, so JP doesn't get to hear, but what, like a second or two of it?
Right. Yeah. Is it still going?
Oh, yeah.
Pumping?
It's still rocking out. I remember we had one time somebody was complaining about not being able to hear us, but I went back and listened to those podcasts. I don't think the music's too loud, right? I mean, in radio, we have music behind us.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about, just balancing the
maybe you're a superhuman. Maybe the people that think the bed's too loud, maybe they have superhuman hearing. You know what I'm saying? That's why they pick it up.
I don't know.
In which case, why are you not a superhero? But my name is Justin.
Oh, and mine's JP.
Did you almost say Justin, too?
Almost.
Yeah, well.
Maybe. It wouldn't have been a lie.
I mean, we could do a Justin and Justin podcast, because if you didn't know, JP's real name is in fact Justin. So
no, we've branded ourselves at this point. There's no turning back.
Yeah. It kind of sounds like a '90s like Nickelodeon show, Justin and Justin.
Yeah, it kind of does. Well,
Justin
what was
Squared.
Pete and Pete was the
Pete and
I
Pete,
remember that. Yeah.
But this is Random Rambling Wednesday. This is a point in our podcast where we talk about absolutely nothing and everything at the same time. We don't know where this conversation will go. We do lots of other stuff. If you just stumbled upon this video on the internet, please consider checking out our channel, because we do talk a lot about The Walking Dead. We talk review and
What's that noise?
What is that? I don't know. We just heard a random noise in the studio. JP's going to check it out. What was it? It's the EAS. If you ever get into working radio, let me just tell you, they will be, I think FCC requires that we have the EAS module in the studio, and this thing goes off at the most inconvenient times for no reason. And 2/3 of the time this POS goes off, it's to give a test. And I know the EAS can save lives, but the tests do nothing but irritate me. You know what? This is live. We're supposed to not be cutting it. JP hasn't come back yet. I don't know where the hell he went. But if you ever worked in radio, you know what I'm talking about being annoyed by the EAS. I hate having this thing in the studio.
Man, I hope there's not a real tornado coming.
It's another warning. They have warnings every other day, and they come at the most inconvenient times.
It'd be a strange time of year for a tornado, that's for sure.
Yeah, it would be. But anyways, before this rude-ass module interrupted me, I was just saying, check out our channel. We do Walking Dead episode-by-episode reviews. In fact, we do Walking Dead comic issue reviews. We also have started this new current events Tuesday thing where we just kind of search the internet and look at some of the top trending stories and just kind of talk about them. And then on Thursday, tomorrow we do mail call. We answer your. So it's a lot of different types of podcasting that we do. So consider subscribing, hitting the little bell if you're listening on YouTube, SoundCloud. I think you just have to follow. But either way. So JP, what's up with you today, man? How's life? How's your girlfriend?
Brother, I don't use those archaic terms, girlfriend, boyfriend. What are we, in middle school or something? Look, you get naked with who you get naked with, Sometimes it's the same person, other times it's not.
But when it's the same person for well over a year, I think it's time to start, using... I'm not. You don't have to label it, but I mean, she's your muse right now.
I mean, she inspires me. All right, it inspires me to throw scrambled eggs up against the wall. Runny as hell.
Oh, she made runny scrambled eggs?
Runny as
See, now God. I like my scrambled eggs juicy, but they have to be fluffy, too. I like fluffy, juicy eggs. Do you like yours dry?
I like them cooked.
My girlfriend likes hers a little drier.
Yeah, I like them cooked.
I like mine
to eat them.
Juicy and fluffy at the same time. My key is whipping cream.
No.
Heavy whipping cream will make them nice and fluffy and done, but they're also juicy.
I keep my mouth moist with the buttered toast and the greasy bacon.
When did she make you bad eggs? When did this happen?
No, I don't know, but it's happened.
And so for that, you can't.
I slung them up against the wall.
You did not.
I slung them up against the wall.
You did not. You did not. You're full of shit.
Thankfully, it was a paper plate, so nothing got broke. I don't want my cat to cut his feet. But no, man.
Oh, come on, Nebo. Watch your toe beans. But yeah, and before we really get into this language warning, language and content, there's no telling where this conversation will go. There's no telling what words will be said. Some points we end up talking about, JP, I should say, ends up talking about masturbation, and bad words get thrown in. So you've been warned. We do have some people that have commented and said things like, I love listening to your Walking Dead podcast while my kids are, and that's cool because we usually don't cuss that often. Every now and again, one will slip, but we don't usually cuss too bad on other podcasts. But this one is no holds bar, so JP will say whatever the hell JP wants to say.
Well, man, I hate parents who are like, don't cuss around my kids. So, your kids are living in the real world with the rest of us. And I'm sorry, but people say a lot of stuff in the real world, and you handle them with kid gloves. When they're not around you and they hear it, they're going to,
So you're just going to be one of those parents that just cusses like crazy in front of your kid?
Yeah, I'm not going to do that, but I'm just going to tell them, look, you shouldn't say this because you're a little kid. But, this is how I'm going to prepare them. Not that I'm going to have kids, but
you will.
I'd prepare them for the real world. Well, I have a testicular anomaly that actually might, God willing, kind of keep my sperm.
Are you being serious?
Yeah, man. I had a surgery it's been more than a decade. Testicular varicosis. It's not the testicles themselves. It's an inflammation in the veins that connects to one of them. So it's basically like having a heat pack in my sack all the time.
So where people have those veiny legs, did you have like a really veiny sack?
Well, you can't see it. It's just for one thing, man. It back in the day, man, it hurt like hell. It's just like one part of your sack's way heavier, like one half is way heavier. And
they do say kind of like breast that one ball is usually always bigger, but yours was like one side of the whole sack itself was bigger, not just the ball.
The testicle. It was it was just really inflamed vessels. And so, man, you could feel it.
Did it just hurt just normal activity or only when you reach that point?
Nah, man, it'd be sometimes just walking around or whatever. It just hurt like a motherfucker. And
that does. Where did you feel the pain for men that might be feeling some pain that might need to check on this? Where was the pain at? Was it in your sack? Was it in your gooch?
In the sack. It's just like the veins running from the lower abdomen down connecting to that testicle. And yeah, man, they would hurt. And sometimes it would run all the way up into my abdomen. I could feel like the trail of the vessels. And that's what they did. They cut into my lower abdomen, basically like tied the veins off.
Right.
And it restricted the blood flow and it went back to normal. But I was in the recovery process. It was just like an in and out surgery. They put me under and everything, but it was what do they call it? Outpatient.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like a few weeks, a month or two later, man, I just, for one thing, man, the blood siphoning, like collecting in those vessels restricted blood flow to my penis. So I could still get hard. I still had a decent erection, but once it was fixed, man, the blood, flowing unrestricted back into my dick.
You just were getting random boners that were super intense?
Well, no, man, it was just I was only getting 2/3 of my dick size. So I'm like, God damn, I got a way bigger dick than I thought.
What's the name of the
testicular varicosis?
It's like, no, girl, I promise it ain't normally that small. I got testicular varicosis. It gets bigger. I promise.
That really was what happened, man. And I masturbated a little too soon after surgery.
I told you the conversation would go to masturbation.
Well, man, we
continue. But, I'm not scolding. I'm just pointing something out.
It did kind of fuck up the surgery a little bit. And it's it's still all right, but it
that is the most JP thing I've ever heard in my life. So you had a surgery and then you messed it up because you masturbated.
Well, man, if you had say tomorrow you wake up and your dick's it's way bigger and you're just like, God damn.
I'm not laughing. Keep in mind,
I had to exercise it, man. It's just.
I'm not laughing at your situation. I'm laughing because if you listen to this podcast, and if you're new to this podcast, then my laughter outburst there might have seemed a little bit extreme. But if you go back and you actually listen to the podcast and get to know JP, you will see why that's so funny. The thought that JP had a surgery and messed things up by masturbating too soon.
Yeah, man. And you got to understand, I've had this surgery. I'm super sore. I'm hobbling around, man. But at the same time, I'm a 20-year-old guy. My dick is still getting hard all the time. And it's almost like I needed to put a collar on, the cone like the dog has after surgery. Only
on your penis.
Yeah. Because, how it's there, it's way bigger.
I did warn you guys before we got into this, this could go anywhere. This is not for everyone.
So, yeah, I masturbated, and it didn't go back to what it was. It definitely, those vessels are still a little bit puffier than they should be, but...
to this day?
There's still a little bit of inflammation. It's not crazy.
So you don't have
it
like
was
spider
before.
veins on your nutsack?
No. You can't see it. It's totally internal.
Okay, I was gonna say,
So
man, that
that's
would
it.
be.
I mean, it's not like super pronounced, but it's definitely not as normal as the right side. This is lefty where it's taking place.
Well, I totally didn't plan on having kids, and now I'm going to have one here in like 2 months.
Hey, man,
I was
it's a
planning
beautiful
to.
thing.
I was planning to. I really was okay. Like I had my life plan was to not have kids, and I love it when people would be like, "Oh, but that's so depressing," and you know. I'm like, the world is full of people making babies. Like me not having a baby is highly doubtful that it would end mankind. I'm pretty sure that humans will continue forward whether or not I have a baby. But
yeah, man. But on a personal level, I mean, 50 years down the road, you got somebody to help take care of you in your golden years. And I mean, you're
if she's a good person.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. And you're passing on, like your essence. I mean, I heard on a podcast the other day, a lot of people think that we're a communal organism. And I mean, all of your ancestors, I mean, not just like genetic information, but like, I mean, consciousness on a almost
like a universal
level
scale,
is passed
right?
into you. And I mean, we're not aware of it, I mean, you got to think, after all, we use like 10% of our brain, but I mean, just all the memories, it's almost like Doctor Who, like, you regenerate, only, I mean, you still die, but who you are and what you are, going back to all your ancestors, goes into the next version of you. And I mean, it's,
That 10-20% of your brain thing is very controversial, because I've read a thing where scientists have said that's just something they really got to go in with like movie tropes, because you use all of your brain, you just use it at different times. Different parts of the brain control different functions. That's something I've heard. I actually had a heated argument with a guy who got very, very butthurt when I was like, well, actually, man, just watched a video where a doctor was talking about that's a misconception that way, and he's like, no, I watched the Limitless movie, and it said we only used 10. I was like, well,
I never saw that.
It's a movie. It's not a. It's all right. They made it wasn't good enough to make a show out of. Yeah. But yeah, and I think it was Thomas Edison. I might be wrong, but I think Thomas Edison thought that we were all God. Like essentially, all of us made up God. You know what I mean? Like when you die, like. Basically, kind of like what you're saying, like almost as if God isn't so much a person or a being, but like it's this thing that like broke apart and spread into us, and we all carry a part of it with us. And like actually a really cool book, if you're into things like that, you should borrow it from me, dude. I think you would love it. It's by George Norrie. And it's called.
I love him.
Oh, dude, it's called
Coast to Coast AM.
Yeah, I've got it at home. It's a great book. I mean, I will admit the first little bit of it's kind of boring. If you can kind of get through that, it opens up into some amazing stuff. It's called Talking with the Dead, but it's not what you think. It's not. It does talk about talking to people, talking to dead people, but dude, it goes so in depth about like the levels of the afterlife. And one thing that he talks about, George Norrie never claims any of this is true or false. He's just
speculation,
right?
Yeah.
And one person suggested that when you die, there are the 7 stages of the afterlife. Like, you've got like purgatory, and then you've got like, and I'm paraphrasing because I read the book like 8 years ago. So it's been a while. But like basically you get to one part, like levels maybe 3 and 4, 4 and 5 are what we would consider heaven. It's where you're happy and you still have sex, they say, but it's a spiritual kind of sex. I don't know exactly what.
So, is there spiritual masturbation?
There's orgasms, but it's just not as messy. Maybe, I don't know. But that's what you would consider heaven. But actually, the 7th tier is where you move past any of this. You become part of a collective consciousness. Like you move. You've gotten everything out your system. Whatever, and then there are certain stages that are more like hell. And there's certain points where you can regenerate. So it kind of encompasses a lot of religions into this one little pyramid. Like you've got the Christian or kind of like, regular thought of like heaven. You've also got like the reincarnation stage of it. You've got the hell and purgatory points of it. And then you've got the part where, like I said, it's like a spiritual ascension. You kind of, if you feel like you haven't learned everything you need to learn, or maybe you need to grow more as a spiritual being, you get to a point where you can reincarnate. Yeah. And you grow each time you reincarnate. I find reincarnation to be a fascinating just idea. I'm like you say, I don't really know that I believe in anything. I just think it's really cool to, examine these, because you just never know what is or isn't.
Yeah, so deep down, I think when we die, we just turn into fertilizer. But I was also I'm very fascinated with the DMT,
right? The mind altering
hallucinogen, and our bodies produce it. It is produced, I think, in the pineal gland, and they say it has a lot to do with dream production. And a lot of people think that it's released when we die, and that's actually what basically transmits our consciousness into the next dimension.
That's cool.
So that's and they say that people who do, like terminal cancer patients, if you're dying, you do this DMT, it alleviates all your anxiety about death.
Right.
It takes you and brings you back, takes you to that dimension and brings you back.
That's really. I'll have to read on that. That's very fast. So do some people take DMT as like a drug?
Yeah, man. Well, it's not like coke. It's not like a party thing, but you have a very intense spiritual journey.
Where do you get it?
Dude.
So some people think it connects us with. It's kind of like a ladder to connect us.
Yeah, man. And people have been doing it for. Like shamans. It's found in nature. People have been like toads. It's found in. You've heard of people licking toads.
Right. Is that what that is?
Tripping. Well, now the best way to do it, they can actually make it synthetically in a laboratory. So you're not.
Yeah. Don't go out and lick toads.
Right.
Poison arrow frogs are really deadly.
There's no telling, that toad might have been sitting in a creek full of hepatitis or
right,
something.
Yeah.
But nah, man, DMT, I really want to, in a very, controlled setting with someone who knows what they're doing and where it came from. Because they say at first, I think you have to take, 3 hits maybe. But
we're not encouraging you to go out and do drugs. Keep in mind that the opinions of JP and myself are just our own opinions and nothing we are recommending you go out and do.
No, I'm speaking just strictly.
This is JP talking about what he wants to do, not what you should do.
Yeah,
Make that
I'm not
clear.
recommending anything to anybody, but I'm just saying stuff I've heard. Anyway.
Right, and you're right. I'm just disclaimer. So if somebody goes out and does something stupid, they can't hold us responsible.
Yeah. But man, they say at first it's like you're strapped to a rocket ship and you are just zoom through the cosmos. And they say if you don't take that second or third hit, that's all you experience is just this terrifying journey and you don't get to the destination. But they say once you get to the destination, you actually interact with these they call them elves, a lot of people do. And they talk to you, they interact with you. And basically the argument is, are they actually these beings from another dimension, call them whatever you want, elves, demons, angels, whatever, or is this just you communicating with the deepest parts of your subconscious?
Oh, so, man, that's... I'm gonna have to... There's probably books written on this, right?
Dude, there's been extensive research on it.
Check that out. That's fast. I'm not saying I want to try it, but that is very fascinating. Like I said, see, JP, in more or less, and we don't get into politics and religion that much, but we'll say, JP, you are more or less, right now, you're always open to new things, but at the moment, you think that, if you die, that's pretty much just it. You go to kind of join with the earth and your body's fertilizer. And
until I experience something that leads me to believe otherwise, why am I going to believe something that other people have told me?
And keep in mind that's JP's opinion, because some people just get we've seen it in our comment section, some people get so butthurt if you don't think the same thing they do. And it's man, the world's going to be really hard and scary for you because lots of people think differently. I am more of I'm not on JP's level. I right now straight up just don't know. I am open to ideas and I read a lot. I'm another YouTuber and I feel awful for not knowing his name. I've watched several of his videos. He's awesome, and I'll try to find his name before the end of the podcast so that I can give him credit because he's awesome. But he kind of said he's got a video called something to the effect of do I believe in God or does God exist or something? And he determines it where he says, he's a seeker. He doesn't really know. Right. He's always looking and maybe one day he'll find what he was raised Christian or Catholic, and he said that, he's kind of gotten a little bit away from that. Maybe one day he'll come back to it. Maybe one day he'll find something new. But at the moment, he's just not limiting himself to one thing because he's just kind of learning for himself. And that's kind of where I am. And I have no problem with religious people or not religious people. I think everybody is, you can learn something from you can learn from the Christian, you can learn from the atheist, you can learn from the Hindu, you can learn from the Buddhist, you can learn something from everyone. So, it's just interesting. I always love to keep my eye, because I know some people, like being raised Christian, when you start even looking into other ideas of reading about reincarnation. Well, why are you doing that? Do you want to go to hell? And it's like, well, I'm just reading. I find it fascinating. I don't want to narrow my view to one thing.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man, with DMT, some great sources. I really got to investigating it after hearing Joe Rogan talk about it. He's had a Graham Hancock, a historian, archaeologist guy. He actually wrote a book about it. He thinks that our lower hominids experimenting with DMT found in nature helped develop the modern human mind.
I remember you telling me that.
Abstract thought, a language. But he's had some great conversations with Graham Hancock on DMT. Mike Tyson, recently just did DMT, and
that DMT is nice.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, man.
I talked to the ills.
A lot of people believe that the Nazis, the Nazis were big into the occult,
right?
And think that a lot of
that's some fascinating stuff, man.
Yeah,
the Nazi occult tie-ins.
But they think that they were actually experimenting with DMT, and some people even speculate that. Because, they had technology that at some points was beyond ours. They just didn't develop it fast enough, to beat us.
Right.
They had flying saucers, and all this stuff. And they think that, and it's still going on today, that technology and new information is being passed on to us through these entities that we communicate with via DMT. And a lot of people, have taken it to the extent to where, you get a tolerance that the DMT doesn't affect you. And they will actually stop your heart and keep oxygen pumping into your blood, but just your body thinks you're dead, and it releases DMT naturally. And they say that's the most intense way to get to that level. It's insane, man.
People go through some links, but if it's a spiritual awakening, I guess that's the
I ain't gonna let nobody look. I do want to try it, but ain't nobody gonna stop my heart.
I was gonna say I'm not trying to go flatliners on this. I've seen that movie. Apparently, I didn't. I feel bad. I didn't even realize that was a remake of an old movie. Because if you go on Netflix, you can find. Okay, the guy, Answers with Joe. That's the name of the channel, Answers with Joe, where he talks about a scientific explanation for God's the name of the video. If you are into that kind of stuff, you should definitely check out that video. It's a great video. Answers with Joe is an awesome channel. This guy's... he seems very smart. I'm sure he does research and stuff before his videos, but his channel's awesome. I've spent hours watching his stuff, but his A Scientific Answer to God, that's a really good video. He's very respectful. He doesn't come on and because I also can't stand people on either side of religion or not religion that are so vicious towards each other. You're atheists that just go out of their way to go after Christians, and on the other side of the coin, Christians that go way out of their way to attack, people that believe different. Joe is his channel, man. He's very respectful. It's very, very, very easy to watch video. So Answers with Joe, man, go watch that video. Tell him the Podcasting Dead sent you. We'd love to do a video with him.
Yeah, man. Something really fascinating. I heard some people have the idea that, God or the God force or whatever you want to call it, knows.
Did you say the God force?
Yeah, whatever you want to call it.
That sounds like the next rank up on Trump's Space Force.
Man,
we've decided to go into heaven.
I don't think it would be a bad idea, but
he's got Space Force. He's like, you've heard of Space Force. Now we're going to heaven with the God Force. It's going to be huge.
Man.
I do a terrible Trump impression. I'm sorry, but that is funny. Go ahead, though. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just saw an opportunity there, and I jumped at it. I'm rude. Go.
The idea that, God is omnipresent, omnipotent, knows everything, is everywhere all at once, but the one thing God does not know is where he came from, what came before God,
right.
Where he came from, what created him or her, whatever, gender-neutral pronoun insert, whatever. And the whole reason for, conscious beings like ourselves is trying to seek these answers, making curious.
We're an experiment, kind of?
Yeah.
To see where we go.
Right. Just trying to figure out these mysteries, vicariously through us.
It does say that he made us in his own image.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It does say that God made man in his own image, and that, so maybe it is kind of like an experiment. He created us to be like him, to watch our evolution and where we go and what we do, maybe uncover. Man, that'd be a cool comic series.
It would be.
To uncover answers about his own origins. See, I've always just been taught that God's always existed.
Yeah, it's like a circle. There's
Right.
no beginning, no end.
And as a kid,
I always thought that was a cop-out.
well, see, and I could see that. But as a kid, my teacher, I ran into my 4th grade teacher at a wedding like last summer, and she was I don't even remember. I was ADD as hell, man. So I don't remember half. It's like being drunk for a few years. Having severe ADD is like being drunk when you think back on certain times because you really don't have any recollection of specific things,
right.
but yet you have some really weird memories of things that you don't know why you remember. But she was talking about, like, my mom was there and everything, and talking about how I was always just this really deep thinker to be so young. Like, I really, like, when she would tell a story, I would be asking these really in-depth questions. You know, like as a kid, while playing video games, when they would have like guns and they would put them on their back, but there's no strap or nothing. I'm like, what's holding it on their back? And it's like, why at 10, or is that what you was? So that's kind of what she was going. But like, I remember as a kid really thinking about that, and I actually thought the same thing. Like, man, that's kind of a cop out. But then I was like, well, you know what though? Because then I was more Christian. Then I was, because that's what I was raised to be, and that's what I was really into. You know, I was really. I'm not going to say I'm not Christian now. I don't really know what I am, but I know then I was going to church all the time, and it was a big part of my life. But I had thought, well, maybe that's just a thing. We can't comprehend something not having a beginning or an end because it's all we know. Because we are born, we have a beginning. Our parents have, like, that's all we know. So our brains just cannot comprehend something that we're not. It's not a process of our existence. Keep in mind, this is like 10-year-old Justin thinking here, but you know, like it's one of those things. And I do, you know, it is kind of like well, how does God know that I was thinking evil things? He just does. Okay, but can you go a little bit more in depth? Does he have like receptors in all of our heads? Is he a telepath? I mean, So I get the cop-out thing, but in my mind, it was a kid. It was just trying to rationalize. It was like, maybe we just cannot comprehend something that just is.
Yeah, and that very well could be the case. There's a lot we don't comprehend, but, you know, I grew up the same as you. You know, I don't know if I grew up Southern Baptist. I don't know what.
Yeah, likewise.
But no, man, I was super Christian, more or less, up until like one of my best friends the summer between 8th and 9th grade. He went to a Jesus camp in Florida. And, you know, he was like me, just a Christian, but he still liked to cuss and look at porn and stuff. And he came back, man, and just like the version of him that came back that I was hanging out with, you know, first semester, 9th grade, I was just like, I can't get down with this. And that kind of just his like uber Christianity kind of like started me down the path of, you know, like rationalism. And not that Christians aren't rational, but
I think we're doing a good job. See, when we started this podcast,
I guess cynicism would be a better word.
Yeah,
yes,
we said a long time ago we'll never cover religion or politics and discuss it, but you know, we actually are discussing religion now. But I think we're doing good. We're not being mean to any religions. We're not insulting. We're just we're doing what we said. We're discussing it. We're not. You know, so I'm proud of you and us because I know that, and I still I never want to get into politics. I can tell you right now, podcasting, I have zero desire to get into politics. I hate what politics do to people. I hate how it divides people. Hate politics. Think it's something you should keep up with. You have your own opinions. I just don't want to hear people's opinions on politics, and I don't want to give my opinions because people don't want to hear them. But
right. Well, I think at the end of the day, man, that's the reason politics probably came about was, you know, the higher ups were like, you know, this will splinter the people, you know,
right?
Separate.
Oh, yeah. I mean, now we'll talk politics if it's something like that when we start doing the conspiracy podcast.
Sense,
yeah, right. But no, I know that we've said, so for those that might be like, you guys said you never do religion. I think this is an okay religious discussion because we're not pointing you to a religion and we're not discrediting anybody's religion. We're just talking about different ideas. And keep in mind, this conversation started off talking about JP's masturbation. Mm-hmm. Now, I think this is okay. So anybody that might be like, you know, you guys said you never discuss religion, apologies, but I think this is a pretty rational discussion.
I mean, look, if you're that easily butthurt, if you don't have an open mind, it's probably not the podcast for you in general. You know, I mean, stick to the Monday podcast if you just want to hear us review a TV show.
That's what I had to tell somebody in the comments section. What did she get butthurt about?
I brought up Alex Jones. Last Wednesday? Maybe? Alex Jones was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and that's actually a lot of the stuff I'm pulling up today about DMT and the Nazis came, and that thing about God. They were talking about it. Him and Alex Jones and.
JP, take some DMT.
Right. Well, no,
also brain force.
The thing with Alex Jones, actually, like he believes in DMT, and he was talking about the other dimensions. But what he was saying, he thinks that there's good entities in that dimension and there's dark entities. He thinks that going there via the use of DMT, smoking it or whatever, all you can really commune with are the darker forces.
Right.
And at first they might, endear you and be nice and you think you're being enlightened. But he actually brought up a really good point. Like every culture, like ancient cultures that, use this DMT through rituals. And I don't know about everyone, but you got to think like the Aztecs, they were heavy into hallucinogens. And I mean, they sacrificed like probably millions of people through, maybe not
and
millions.
They were like ways too.
Yeah, I mean, they were heavy into ritualistic sacrifice. And he just says that sooner or later it leads you down a dark path. He said that, DMT is there. And, in the end, what we produce in our bodies, does take us to this place. But that
is fascinating when you think about like applying that to old religions and like pagan religions and these brutal things that were done in the name, I mean, even the Vikings did ritual sacrifice and stuff to like Odin and Thor. If you're talking about these, I mean, maybe it makes you think these beings wanted to be worshipped like gods and they had the power to influence.
Lead you down a dark path. Yeah,
that's fascinating, man. I need to read on that. That's a really cool thought, man.
I'm telling you, I'm going through that podcast from last week with Joe Rogan and Eddie Bravo and Alex Jones, like for the second time, man. It was some deep conversation.
That's awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out, man.
It's really good, man. Like it's crazy because Joe Rogan's kind of like you. He's a rationalist. I mean, he entertains theories, whether it's conspiracies, whether it's this, whether it's that, but he doesn't necessarily like buy into them.
Joe Rogan, George Norrie. I think I try to be that way because I really always liked George Norrie and respected him because he was always, and I think he's actually a Christian or Catholic.
I think so.
But he's very open to other ideas, and he never try. I try not to make someone feel stupid for 9 out of 10 of their ideas. Now, sometimes there might be something that's just so dumb. You're like, come on, dude. But I like to hear thoughts because you learn from people.
That's the only way to learn. Yeah, but it was a really well-rounded discussion. Alex Jones, he's into his stuff. Like Eddie Bravo's way out there with like flat Earth and all that stuff.
I was gonna say, so tell me who Eddie Bravo is. I don't know who this guy is.
Eddie Bravo, he's a regular on Joe Rogan's podcast. He's like one of the best jiu-jitsu fighters in the world. He's got like I said, he's not like a wacko. He's not a dumb guy. He's like I said, like a jiu-jitsu master. A 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu is his program.
10th Planet I know Small Circle Jiu-Jitsu, but I've never heard of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu.
Well,
I'll look it up.
That's the name of his school. It's not like its own style.
Oh, gotcha. I thought you meant that was a style. I was going to say, is this like galactic judo?
Nah, but he's a big flat earther, and he's a Mexican guy, and he's really entertaining to listen to, man. And
Eddie Bravo, any relation to Johnny Bravo?
Not to my knowledge. But
I love Johnny Bravo, man.
But yeah, man, Joe Rogan was a break. Joe Rogan just does not entertain flat Earth at all.
And see, am I like a spinoff of Joe Rogan? I've never listened to his podcast, but that's the way I am too. You know that I just do not entertain flat Earth. Like if we ever get this conspiracy podcast, I promise not to scoff at you. I will let you do a flat Earth without trying to tear you down, because I get it. That's something that you I'm not going to say you believe, but it's something you explore and you check out. So I would let you do that without being an asshole. Well, but
man, I
don't buy into it either.
I mean, besides the fact, whether it's possible the Earth being flat or not, I think it's entirely possible that dark forces that control the populace, the people in charge, would lie to us on that big of a scale. That's what I advocate more than the flat Earth itself. The fact that there could be this massive conspiracy to completely pervert our perception of reality.
Right.
Because, we've seen it on smaller scales, with false flags, whether you're talking about like Gulf of Tonkin or Operation Northwoods or, anything like that. We know the government lies to us to achieve its means, whatever that is.
Yes, they do. They lie a lot.
I could go into like 9/11 stuff, which I'm not going to do, but Gulf of Tonkin and Operation Northwoods, man, those are like false flags on the record. Like we know the government was, lying to us and doing shady shit.
Well, one theory that I've heard about the flat Earth that I can understand, or I could see, is somebody said that the Earth's not flat. It's round, opaque, however you want to describe its shape, but it's not flat. But that the whole flat Earth argument is a CIA experiment
PSYOP,
to see how they can dumb down the population, to see how quickly they can spread misinformation to get to a certain place or obtain a certain goal. And it's just now that I can believe, because if you just go to declassified government documents online, man, you can find some twists. Like the government has experimented on the general population with yellow fever and mosquitoes, and I mean, the government's done some shady stuff. And don't get me wrong, I'm a patriot. I love America. I have an American flag in my yard. I love America. But what I'm saying is, just like any government on the planet, I think all governments are pretty much have some portions of themselves that are corrupt.
There are criminal elements in the government, exactly. I mean,
but that's a flat Earth thing that I could get behind, in the sense of that the Earth is not flat, but that it's an experiment to just see how easily they can manipulate us if they need to in the future.
Well, see, a lot of people think that just all the space travel, the sci-fi they've been feeding us since the 1800s with Jules Verne and all these science fiction has been just slowly inundating us through the decades to believe that space travel's possible. We can leave the Earth. Just so
opening our minds up a little bit,
right,
to
right.
these things.
And then they fake stuff like the moon landing, and then in say 2050. They fake an alien invasion, so they pull everyone together, and that's
you get into some Watchmen type stuff there,
man, and that's how they institute a one world government where it usurps your rights. I mean, it's scary stuff, man, and
all that stuff is fascinating, man. Like I said, I've watched a lot of it, and I just I don't know. I mean, I know that there are dark forces, as you say, shady people behind the scenes that have some really we are just ants to them. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're a person walking through the jungle with a purpose, and we are these little ants crawling around under them, and they entirely, they have the power to sway us whichever way they really want. They don't know anything about us inside, but I don't know, man. The dumbing down thing, I could see that they, because they.
Oh, dude, it's happening right now, man.
What about The Walking Dead? Do you think they're desensitizing us to all this gore and stuff? So one day, because you got to think, what is it? I read a study that said a good portion of people in the world have never taken sword fighting lessons, but can actually. And I'm not saying they're going to go out there and be experts, but they actually know some basics of sword fighting, because we've spent our whole lives watching movies and shows and playing games where you sword fight. And I took martial arts for many years, and I can tell you a lot of what you see in the movies are common strikes with swords.
I definitely think there's a concerted effort to dumb us down. A lot of it has to do with these right here, smartphones, man. It was the longest time before I really got a smartphone, and I'm not going to lie to you. In the last 3 years or so, I've been reading less. It's harder for me to pick up an actual book.
You spend hours. Everything's right there on your phone.
Yeah. Well, it's just not that. Just the attention span for me to get the top of the page and the bottom of the page and retain the information.
That's a good point.
It's harder, man. They shorten our attention spans, and now they're trying to introduce this 5K. Have you heard of the 5K?
I know what 4K. You're talking about
not 5G, right?
Oh, so faster speeds.
Yeah,
all that
faster
good stuff.
speeds. But man, it's dangerous stuff. It's more radiation. They're saying, it has a profoundly bad effect. It can even lead to mind control on the human brain.
I'll stick with 4G. Then.
Some people even go as far to say it disrupts our DNA, on a genetic level. It is not good, and they're trying to bring it. Somebody was actually telling me the other day, President Trump is a big guy trying to push bringing in 5G just because, it's bigger, it's better. But
it's huge.
Right. And he was actually going on to say that the whole reason the president wants to bring it to America is more or less so he can have his finger on the kill switch, when the globalists, the powers that be, want to use 5K to, like I said, manipulate us genetically or use it for mind control. He brought it in so he can turn it off if he needs to. Like I said, these are all theories. It's all ideas that I've just,
Right.
across. But no, 5G is scary stuff, man.
I haven't heard of that. I'll have to look into it, man. I hadn't heard anything about it, but it sounds pretty serious.
It can it can be used for mind control and many other things.
Well, I mean, cancer is on, I mean, like you think a lot of things that have been done, and you look at the spread of I got distracted. I'm sorry. By my damn cell phone.
Yeah,
what I was going to say is,
man.
like, you're talking about, you're talking about like the negative effects. I mean, look like how cancer spread through things like radiation and all of these things that we use.
I mean, people who use their phone, a lot like a telemarketer or a traveling salesman who's constantly on their phone. I mean, they're at higher risk for brain cancer and stuff. I mean, there's studies that proves that. I mean, these things. I mean.
I really want to. I want to ban them for my man cave, because I'm gonna tell you, and I do this too. So I am not by any means putting myself as up on a pedestal saying everyone else does this and I'm the only one. We all know we do it, but like I cannot stand what happened. All right, picture this with me. Remember back in the day, our parents or our grandparents had these rooms. They had a TV room with the TV, but they also had living rooms that didn't have TVs in them, and they would have like two couches facing each other, or they would have
den or whatever. Yeah.
And the entire point of going into this room was to sit down and conversate with somebody. Like you would sit down, no TV, no distractions. You would put on a little tune or something, get the record player going. But the point was, you sat down in that room and you conversated face to face, and that's what the point of that room was. You don't really get that as much today. Like when I have a man cave, okay, which I hate using the term man cave, but I've come to realize there's nothing else I can call it that wouldn't sound even cornier, because I've named my man cave. So I'm just referring to it as man cave. And in the man cave, like one thing I really wanted to do 2 years ago when I moved into the house was I wanted to set up a no cell phone rule down there. Yeah. If you got kids or something, sure, you can. Whatever, you can leave it. I was going to put a dish with a table right there, and you put your phone in the dish, because I was saying, when you come down there, we hang out, we talk. If you can't be around me without some form of entertainment going on around you, then maybe we just shouldn't be that good of friends, because if I can't entertain you with a conversation, then why come over? If you have to have your TV on or you have to have the phone on, if just conversating is not enough, then what's the point? So it's like I wanted to do like a no phone rule, but that shit don't last. You tell people, hey, man, drop your phone. You get more annoying, and you annoy them when they come over when you're like, hey, man, But I can't stand to be down there having a good conversation like we're having now. We've had this full-on conversation, and then like someone just gets sidetracked and just derails the conversation because they're like, and they're over there scrolling on Facebook.
It's an addiction, man. I mean, it reminds me a lot of, remember Batman Forever, like what the Riddler was using?
Oh, yeah.
The brain drain thing on everyone's TV. I mean, that's what it is,
And like I said, I'm not innocent either. I go to people's houses and they might start talking. I'm like, and I'm flipping through. I need to stop myself. But like,
I love being able to zone out.
Yeah, that's just, I don't know, man. It just drives me crazy, because I remember like going to my grandparents' house and sitting down in their living room with no TV on, no nothing, and just talking to them.
Yeah, man.
Just having conversations, and then before you know, it's been an hour or two, and you've had these big long conversations, and you didn't have to have. Or like it's kind of like when somebody texts you, you're like they're coming over to play cards or something. They're like, who all is going to be there? What does it matter? Are you not going to come if it's only a few of us? Like, are you just here for the party? But
it's only going to get worse too before you know it. I mean, your phone will be implanted in your brain, and the whole screen will just be, you'll see it in front of you. I mean,
it's almost like Nirvana smells like Teen Spirit. Here we are now, entertained. Like we have to be entertained at all times. We can't just be. And I'm not saying that's what Kurt Cobain was singing about. It just the lyric, entertain us, popped in my head. We have to be entertained at all times.
Our technology is eventually going to be integrated into our biology.
Oh, we already got people with like what's the word I'm looking for? Like bionic arm, limbs and stuff, man. For being. I mean,
we're in the early stages of it.
I mean, you're going to end up like Nebula on like Thanos' daughter, Nebula, like half machine, half person. Man, it's definitely heading that way. But interesting conversation. I think this has probably been one of my favorite random rambling Wednesdays.
We've covered a lot of ground.
I mean, everything from masturbation to religion to the dangers of technology, conspiracies, even a little Walking Dead. Didn't we mention that a time or two?
We did mention The Walking Dead.
So, yeah, we've kind of went all over the place with this one.
Like I said, this podcast is for the very open-minded people who love a free exchange of ideas.
Well, that's definitely what the Conspiracy podcast is going to be too. The Random Ramblings, like this week, we talked a little bit about religions and DMT and stuff. Then, but next week we could talk about the TV show or something. Just the Random Rambling Wednesdays go wherever the conversation goes. That's the point, is to just let it be generic, real conversation and see where it goes. And that's how real conversation is. The radio man in me wants to always try to keep it on one subject. But that's the point of this, is to see where conversations go. And sometimes they do start with something as silly as JP's scrotum issues, and somehow we end up talking about theories of existence and consciousness.
Testicular varicosis is no joke.
So, but yeah, like JP said too, if you're easily offended, just do yourself a favor. Instead of coming back to this podcast week after week just to essentially troll is all you're doing, just go listen to the Walking Dead one, or go, or whatever.
Yeah, if you want to troll away.
It doesn't bother us. It just bothers us. It doesn't bother us. It just seems to bother you, and we don't want to bother you.
Right,
so, just save yourself the trouble.
If ideas coming from different people and different subjects, if you're easily offended and all that stuff, and it's just going to get your panties in a wad, then...
My advice is you don't have to accept every idea you hear, but you don't have to close yourself off to them either. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can listen to other ideas, and if you... I can't tell you how many times I've said, that's cool, man, which is my universal way of saying, I really don't give a shit about what you're talking about, but I'm willing to just let you say it and have your piece.
You, man, the way, the way they govern the internet is going, it probably is pretty soon you might not even be allowed to talk about this stuff on the internet. It's getting scary. Like, you look at legislation being passed in England and stuff like this.
Right.
And they're using the guise of trying to prevent pornography. I don't know, man. Don't get me started.
I've watched somebody from another country talk about the dangers of political correctness, in the sense of you should be a decent human being. Political correctness doesn't have to be extreme. You should be a decent human being. If someone is a different sexuality, race, whatever than you, then there are certain things that you should probably try to be nice and not say, because it's just flat out mean. But at the same time, what happened to sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me? It's but the guy was saying that that's not really what it's about. What it's about is thought control. They start that, the powers to be started this whole political correctness movement as a way to have people scream to be regulated. We want you to tell us what we can and cannot say. And then eventually, they start making laws that go into effect, dealing with political correctness, things you can and cannot say. And then now you've given up free will, and the next thing you know, you're being controlled. And now, again, I'll keep in mind what I'm saying. When I say PC, I'm talking about the extremists, the people that analyze every word that comes out your mouth and try to, obviously, if you make a racial slur or you make a homosexual remark, obviously, when you're being an asshole and when you're not. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about nitpicking every little thing you say. You dig offensive things out of things. I could be like, man, it's a pretty day today, and somebody could dig something offensive out of that.
Political correctness is the biggest enemy of free speech.
Man, the sky is beautiful. Well, how do you think blind people feel about that? Well, I wasn't trying to offend blind people. But that's how they can. It sounds extreme, but it's not really when you look at some other places.
Yeah, man. Political correctness, that's the Trojan horse they're using to just kill free speech. They want it to be like China, where they completely govern the internet. They restrict what you can and can't see. And
China put a restriction on how much their actors can make in movies, because they don't. And I kid you not, look up on it, because it is. They don't want them, and I'm paraphrasing, but this is kind of right off the quote, something to the effect of, they don't want them to get obsessed with money. Mm-hmm. So it's okay for the high officials to be obsessed with money and have lots and lots of money, but they don't. Anyways, what a good podcast, I think. Great discussion. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. This has been I was having a terrible day, JP, before this, and this conversation has just really kind of relaxed me. It's been a
get the poison out, man.
A good,
especially when you realize there's
discussion.
Bigger stuff going on than just what's in our day-to-day lives. That
you kind of see the bigger picture there.
Right. Sometimes it's good to step back and look down on stuff.
If you enjoyed this conversation, let's consider doing a live conversation with it. Maybe we could have a live chat one day where you, the listener, can chime in and give us your thoughts, because again, hopefully, as you've been able to tell, we're pretty open-minded people. We love hearing other ideas, and
I'll answer anything.
We would love to get you in on it. So make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're listening on SoundCloud. Hit the follow button for more content. Again, our conversations go all over the place. We love you. We appreciate you more than you'll ever understand. I'm Justin.
And I'm JP.
And we're the Podcasting Dead.